Hi, good morning, welcome back. And today I would like to show you this magnetic oil dipstick from Figurati Designs. Now this is exactly what you'd imagine it is, a magnetic dipstick. It's a direct replacement for your Harley Davidson dipstick, like for like, with one difference, that it's got a powerful magnet in the tip. Now I imagine the benefits of that are glaringly obvious, but we'll come to all of that at the end. This dipstick is destined for the Electra glide we've been working on, but before I can put it in the engine and swap it for the factory one, we've got to change the oil first. So with all the doings at the ready, there's no need for any chat. We've done this 1,001 times. Let's just get it changed over and we can come back to this in a bit more detail at the end. Right, oil and filter changed. Where was I? Figurati magnetic dipstick. And we'll put it right next to the factory one, and I'll show you the difference between the two. Right, now putting them side by side, the caps are obviously different, but ignoring that for a second, coming from the rubber seal downwards, they're otherwise completely identical to look at, other than the colour. They've got the same scales printed on them, the same length exactly, same thread, same O-ring, and the only difference really is that the M8 printed on the Figurati one, I guess identifies it for M8 engines, and of course it's got this magnet in the end. Otherwise, they are the same dipstick that will give you the same information on your oil level. So having established that they're exactly the same physically from the seal downwards, the only real difference being this magnet in the end of the Figurati one. So let's actually demonstrate that in action. So for all the money one of these costs, and they are quite expensive, this is its party trick. Handful of nuts and washers. Stir it up. Wow, look at that. That is a strong magnet. Ain't falling off either. Well, I think we've established that is one strong old magnet. Look at that, nothing coming off. And apparently the information tells us it's a real earth magnet. Now you can look that up, you can Google it, find out what that is. It is something special. It's not just an ordinary magnet you stick on your fridge. And something else about the design is very common sense as well. I like this, have a look. All right, the strength of the magnet is one thing, but it's no good if the magnet falls off the end because it was glued there and then the magnet itself ends up floating around your engine, which can't happen because, as you can see, it's completely encapsulated inside the dipstick. There's no way the magnet can come free and end up floating around in the oil. And that, I think you'll agree, is common sense. So how much are they? Now, because we go out worldwide, different markets, different exchange rates and whatnot, but one of these, generally speaking, is advertised online about $150. And that's quite a lot of money for a dipstick when you consider the original genuine factory dipsticks are less than half that price, but they don't have a magnet in the end and they're all plastic. And there's the other thing. That part's plastic with a magnet in the end, but it's the lid on the top that is something a little bit special. Now the lid itself, the bit you grab hold of to do it up and undo it, it's proper chunky. It's heavy, really got some weight to it, made from steel I imagine, maybe stainless. It's certainly not aluminium, you feel the weight of that. And that's nice, makes it feel like it's worth the money. And it's not just the bling that's good about it, also that extra size, that chunkiness has a use, it has a practical advantage. I'll show you the difference in comparison to the factory cap on the bike. Right, to check the oil on these motors, you drop this dipstick in and screw it all the way down. Now wherever that thin single blade stops, that's what you have to do to undo it. And it's just 2 fingers, or finger and thumb. And that sometimes when it's a bit tight and it's all hot in this area and you're trying to undo it, that can be a bit awkward. And sometimes you end up putting tools on it to break it free and you end up chewing lumps out of the plastic because that is all they are. So that can be a little bit awkward sometimes. But by comparison, with this big chunky lid, pop that in. Now that is an absolute night and day difference. You can get hold of it at any angle. It's knurled as well with these machine marks cutting it. They do another model that's got flutes all the way around it, equally easy to get hold of. That is far easier to do up and undo when you're checking your oil, which you're going to do every day, than the plastic one from the factory. All right, so we've established it's pretty, it's heavier than the standard one. We've established that it costs a lot more money than a standard one, and it's got a magnet in the end that we know works. But why would you spend all that money on a dipstick with a magnet in the end? The only reason you do it is for the protection that that can potentially give you to your engine's internals, because that is all that's important in the face of everything else. Okay, so obviously the magnet in the end of the dipstick is to capture ferrous metal particles that are passing by, stop them from running on down the engine into the bearing surfaces and causing wear. It's effectively a second sump plug magnet elsewhere in the engine to do the job that the sump plug magnet does as well. But the sump plug magnet doesn't do this. This is probably about 5 times stronger than your sump plug magnet, so it's going to collect particles for sure. And also the oil is passing the end of the dipstick far more flowingly, if that's a word, than it is down on the sump plug, because everything down in the sump is a little bit static right down there at the bottom. There's more flow and more passing oil up at the dipstick level, so that's going to work better than your sump plug magnet, but also in conjunction with it, so it's belt and braces. And the question is quite obvious: why have you got bits of metal floating around in your oil anyway? Why isn't the oil filter capturing them? It's supposed to filter down to 5 microns, so surely nothing will end up on the dipstick, it will all be in the filter, won't it? Well, no, it won't, because everything lower than 5 microns is going to go through the filter. Remember, the filter has to allow oil to flow through it. If it blocks completely, then oil stops moving, the pressure builds right up, and the bypass valve blows open, and the oil starts going round the filter and missing it altogether. So the closer you get to your service, the older your oil is, the more particulates that are in your filter, the flow through that filter slows down, and the more oil starts going through the bypass valve, especially on a hot day when everything tends to build up a bit. So these will capture everything smaller than 5 microns and anything that passes the filter due to the bypass valve. So what you'll see on the end of your magnet won't be curly bits of swarf and chips and flakes. Well, certainly you hope it isn't. What you will see is that grey, slimy paste. They are particulates that are smaller than 5 microns, or tiny little fragments that you can barely see individually, but they make up a slimy paste, and that's metallic, and it still gets in between bearing surfaces and it still causes excessive wear. So having it all collected on the end of your dipstick, remember, you should be taking the dipstick out at the end of every ride when your engine's hot to check your oil level for the next ride. And when you do that, just give it a wipe. You've wiped away those metal particles. Remember, you're wiping them away every time you check the oil. On your sump plug, you're only wiping that off when you change the oil every 5,000. So that's getting cleaned practically every day and redoing its job. And I like that. Right, to pay credit where due, this Figurati magnetic dipstick came from Ryan Ehrlicher at lawabidingbiker.com. I'll leave a link in the description to his website and this particular product, so you can see if there's one available for your Harley Davidson or Indian motorcycle. Thank you so much, Ryan, for your support. I personally will also be putting one of these in my Heritage Softail. That's definitely a must, because I totally believe in the simple principle of it, and I value my engine. So why wouldn't you do that? So I'm going to drop this in the engine now, go for a test ride, and let it start earning its keep. I'll see you next time.